System, you've recently found yourself signed to Mushroom Records, which is a label in the past primarily known for its sort of support of the more rockist elements of traditional rock elements of music. I personally think it's actually quite a brave signing by them, because I can't think of anyone else who I can draw comparisons with you guys signed to what's essentially a major label. How did that actually come about, the Mushroom signing? Oh, sorry.
I mean, I think for us, it's not really a major label, even though Mushroom is a major label. When we first went in, it was about making the shit that we wanted to make, as opposed to a big hit track or signing with the major part of Mushroom. Whereas Steve Cross he's into deeper tunes and stuff, so you can see that there's also an appeal that's outside of what they used to know about or whatever. There's a whole other world. And I think most record companies now are starting to get into it. So I think by going with the smaller version, it's good.
Yeah, because we actually signed with Infectious, which is a subsidiary. So, and we've been building the relationship over a period of time anyway, doing various remixes for the artists on the roster, and it got to the stage where we just basically saw Steve's record collection and thought, that's all right.
Yeah, it's got some good records, which have already been sampled.
Yes, right, and obviously we went around over the sampler and got most of the good bits.
Yeah, he's actually one of the rare credible people actually.
Totally, yeah. And when you meet people like that, you instantly think, well, you either click or you don't, and we really clicked, and we thought we could do something positive together. So I think that's.
And I think originally we didn't think that the EP would be going the way it has, to be totally honest. It was just a case of we wanted to get it out, and we knew that a certain amount of people would be able to hear it. But for example, it's not really got played on Triple J, but Kiss and stuff like that have been really supportive here. So they just, when we played at Revolver the other week, on the back of the touring with Alex Lloyd, which was a strange one, and then the support of Kiss and the video and stuff, it was really worth it, and it's starting to get out there. And that's without Triple J. We'd like, obviously, to get Triple J, but we can't specifically write a track for anywhere. I think we just got to do it, and then because the EP's all over the place as it is, sort of different styles. Yeah. So hopefully for different places, each track can go somewhere else. Yeah.
Good answer. An obvious question. You're both English. Why Australia?
There was that. Well, personally speaking, the reason I'm in Australia, there was no real plan to it. I just happened to be on tour at the time, and the last gig was Melbourne. It was the big day out thing. I was playing bass with Tricky, and basically he was splitting the band up for a while, and because he had to go off and do movies and stuff. And so I found myself in Melbourne. I really like it, so I just stayed behind, and that was it really. So there's no real plan, and I guess maybe there was a subconscious plan, because I've been working so hard in London and stuff, putting on parties and what have you, and working in studios and programming and stuff, that I felt that it was time for a change and to experience a different culture. So that was basically why I'm here.
I mean, I've been here for 10 years now, 10, 11 years. I've been back a couple of times, but yeah, no, I was engineering before this, so yeah. Engineering.
Morecambe and Wise. Okay. What frustrations have you had with the local scene, say, compared to when you were both working in the UK?
The frustrations, regarding the local scene, the frustrations I've got are purely logistical. Like this, the actual local scene's great, but the gigs are so far apart that it's not like in the UK you can get in the back of a big splitter bus and just drive all over with racks and racks of gear, and play millions of venues to a lot of people, sort of thing. Because the venues over here are all very, very far apart. You tend to have to take a stripped down production with you, so you can't really put on the show that you've got in your head. You have to do a sort of skeleton version of it, and that's really the only thing that's sort of bugging me about it. You have to get it light so you can fly it everywhere. I don't really fancy driving to Perth, so.
Yeah.
Sorry.
The local scene's great though. Melbourne especially, it's harder than anywhere else. It's sort of a bit more banging. Sydney's funkier.
Yeah.
Don't really know Brisbane and Adelaide or Perth, but it's a good scene, and there's lots of local stuff being made. So as long as we can keep places like Kiss on the air, you know, and the Triple R's start supporting all the dance music, and and place environment.
Subscribe to Kiss right now.
Yeah. And Triple R. Yeah.
How would you actually compare, say, the Australian musician with the musicians that you've that you have worked with in the UK? Do you find that there's much of a difference in terms of attitude as to what they're doing, a bit of a tall poppy syndrome? Do you find there's much of a difference there at all between them?
I think that the culture is obviously a lot more laid back over here, and people aren't so highly strung in general. A sweeping generalisation, I know, but most of the people we work with are pretty laid back, aren't they?
Yeah, except Michael.
Yeah,
that's what makes him so awesome. Yeah. Michael Denelsen's a classic. It doesn't matter. He's not from any country. He's from another.
He's from
planet.
Mars, mate.
He's fantastic. Yeah.
Okay. The very dynamic coupling that you had with Renee Gayer earlier on the year, and in fact, I believe you've done it several times previously with her. As I think I said to you, Rev, on the phone the other day, was probably the best live gig I've seen this year
Which one was
at Vibes.
Oh right, yeah.
It was just standing there in the audience, and just the whole presentation of lights, just this enormous diva on stage. Everything about it was just, to me, the ultimate marriage of rock and techno, I guess, for want of two better words. It just really says everything about where music is in 1999, and in fact where it's to go. How did you actually get to work with Renee Gayer? What was the connection there?
Colin Daniels was originally. Originally it was Colin Daniels. He came up with an idea, or actually before Colin Daniels, I think it was Matt Haywood. Matt Haywood suggested it, and then they got it to, it was mentioned, and Colin put it together for her Best Of Remix album. He put, and we did one track. She dug that. We basically did a few more. She dug them, and then sort of got offered a gig, on the back of that. She was doing a thing with Paulie Main at this time as well, that Strictly Rhythm thing. So she wanted to play a club, asked us to do it. And mixing that with Spencer and Peter Luscombe, it just turned into this
monster.
Yeah, it was really good, and so we did it a few more times.
There's such a lot of energy as well when we perform with Renee, because we're really across what we're doing, and she's obviously a master of her art as well. So there's not a lot of communication having to go on. It's just sort of all pretty much smooth, and off you go, really, isn't it?
Even though
it's alchemy.
Still have to can in the bit sometimes.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Who was actually, just on that? Who was actually the guitarist that was on stage with you that night? Was that Ross Hannaford?
And Michael Denelsen. Yeah, Denelsen did one of them, didn't he?
Yeah.
And Ross Hannaford did.
Yeah, we had an arsenal of guitarists on stage.
Yeah. What did he think of it? What did he think of that actually?
I don't know.
I think a lot of the the established Melbourne musicians that we might jam with Renee are quite up for it. Spencer P. Johns in particular he's mad for a bit of techno, he just gets to rock out big time, doesn't he? We played a lot of clubs and with him and Renee, and he loves it because of the power element, and he's a very powerful guitarist.
He puts his Lancaster bomber on.
And he can basically just make, bizarre, strangled sort of noises, and it fits really, really well with what we're doing. It gets to be really experimental. I mean, when we had him in the studio, we sampled a bit of him for a track on the EP, and he was sort of swinging the mic around his head and kicking the amp over and stuff. And those primarily the bits we used. I don't think we really used that much playing, did we? It was more sort of him having a fit.
It was great.
Screaming into the mic in an alien voice. So I think they're up for it, and it's a more. They might have been locked into a particular style for a few years, and it's just like any good musician always wants to experiment and stretch their boundaries. So generally speaking, if they're well-adjusted individuals, then they'll get into it. Not that. I'll leave it there.
How much improvisation actually goes on during a pound system gig?
It depends on what set we're doing, and if we're doing a Duff set, if we're playing more somewhere like Every Picture or somewhere like that, the beats and everything, all the beats are all programmed anyway. a lot of the noises, and the Reverend sings and plays a bit of bass, but the bass is on the keyboard obviously, and riffs and stuff. A lot of what, the other side of it is mixing it up as well, effects and stuff, rather than it being exactly, live playing. It's a sound system as opposed to, and then when we get people to play with us, they can do that. They can have a bit of a play if they want, and we can mute them if they're not playing anything any good.
That's basically the whole thing, and also you going on the crowd feedback as well. You can tend to stretch elements out.
Yeah, you can build it up.
You can loop a section for as long as you want, and build it and build it and build it, and remove like the bass or whatever, and then bring it back in. So it's basically you're doing what you do in the studio when you're putting a mix together, but you're doing it live on stage, and also playing a bit as well.
Yeah.
But because you're fairly constrained, we haven't got 8 arms, so we can't play absolutely everything. But the key elements are sequenced, and we'll just get jamming over the top of that.
Get amongst it.
Yeah. That's right. Yeah. Getting jiggy with it.
Getting jiggy with it. So, is rock and roll dead?
Is rock and roll dead? I don't know. I haven't seen it around recently. I tell you, it's pretty ill.
Nah, it's just
got to mutate. I think it's like everything else. To survive, you've got to evolve, and if you don't evolve, then you're dead.
Yeah. Or it'll go somewhere else again anyway. But I mean, as long as there's you see in England, what I like about England is, even though we're not there now, is that the fact that you can listen to certain radio stations and they'll play rock and roll, and then they'll play a dance track. Whereas here it seems to be still a bit like one or the other, and every now and again there's a dance track, or there's no sort of, and
there's a big divide.
Yeah, and then you've got like the mainstream radio that's bizarre.
Let's leave it at that. I think for the mainstream radio. When we all grow up, obviously we have a lot of different musical influences thrust upon us. Okay. Oh dear.
You can come and sit with us for 5 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Bit of continuity, that'd be great.
Yes. And now...
Excellent. Where did that come from?
What you need to do, Jim, is just get a shot of you just going... and then, pow! Baby appears.
There you go.
When we all grow up... we all sort of tend to have a lot of different musical influences thrust upon us in terms of what we're watching on television, what we're being told to listen to on the radio. What were your particular musical influences, and at what stage did you actually decide that electronic music was the direction that you'd be heading in? 1, 2.
Personally, I think when I first went to my first sort of house party, that was when I decided, which was about 1989, that was when I decided that electronic music was sort of where it's at.
I was going to say, can we start that again?
Crash. Shall I move these out of the way?
Yes. What have we got?
Causing noise, but...
Okay. 1, 2, 3, go.
I forgot
what was the question? musical influences, and in what point in your life you think that electronic music was more your sort of forte?
Yeah, well, as usual, when someone asks me what my musical influences are, my mind goes immediately blank. We're coming from the other part of the question. I decided to electronic music, if you like, was for me when I went to my first house party in about 1989, and then went to various raves and stuff and what have you, and started putting them on. Influences wise, at the time, around about 1989, prior to that I was a punk rocker, and everything that goes with it, but the initial excitement of that scene had sort of died down for me, and the new movement that was happening, acid house and all the rest of it, was the Summer of Love. It was very intriguing, but again I still had sort of like an industrial bent to it, as more of a rocky bent to it. I was listening to bands like going back a bit, Nitzareb and Front 242, a lot of sort of Belgian noise merchants and stuff, but heavily sort of techno-y stroke industrial sort of stuff. And then, I don't know, after that I suppose you once you get into a scene, you start developing like little tendrils that take you off everywhere, and you start listening to more soul-y elements or something, or you might get in drum and bass or whatever. So, but I think the key thing, the moment, was in 1989, off my head.
Yeah, I used to break dance when I was at school.
He had his own personalised lino.
Yeah, got into it from there, sort of Saturday afternoon discos, breakdancing, and stacker, humanoid, all that kind of stuff. And then and when I got here, I got here in '89, or just and 808 State and all that kind of stuff. But then I started to do rock and roll, so that was my first taste of rock and roll when I got to Australia. But that's why I did a project before, because there was no bands to do. Everything was a rock and roll thing, so I did the Boots Collective thing for a while. We can expect another release early next year. Hopefully we'll have it finished way before then, but it should be early next year, even though we'd love it to be this year, but I doubt that's going to happen. To physically be out anyway. It might be out early.
So radio probably December, maybe. Yeah, hopefully January. Yeah.
Depending.
Excellent. All right.
And that'll be a ball terror.